Was this 8-year-old a demon? Gee, what kind of question? Wow.
I know, right?
That kid is thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, those are great questions. And
how could Lucifer have sinned if he was in heaven? An 8-year-old asked Dr. Frank Turek this very question, and his response will blow your mind. You might be wondering, how could a perfect being in a perfect place like heaven even think of rebelling against God? And what about the other angels who followed Lucifer? Did they have free will in heaven? And what exactly is sin, anyway? Dr. Turek's answer will surprise you and make you think differently about heaven, angels, and the nature of sin. And we will provide more information in the end. So, let's dive in and explore this fascinating topic together.
What's your name?
Madeline.
Hey, Madeline.
So I worked at a summer camp like a few summers ago, and I had a 8-year-old ask me this question, and it like really stumped me. Okay, so it kind of has like multiple parts to it, but in heaven, if we're not going to sin, we're not going to have sinful thoughts, bad thoughts. How did Lucifer think to like go against God? Like how did he decide that like he wanted to be God if he was in heaven and we're not going to have sinful thoughts? And then like with that also goes with like angels. How do they decide to go with the devil? And then is there free will in heaven? Are all angels in heaven, or are some outside the realm of heaven? And then how can angels switch from going inside heaven to outside the realm of heaven?
Was this 8-year-old a demon? Gee, what kind of question? Wow.
I know, right?
That kid is thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, those are great questions. And I think when it comes to how could Satan have fallen being in the presence of God, first of all, the Bible doesn't really tell us, right? In fact, we don't even know how many angels went with him until like you're in Revelation 13 or something, right? There's not a lot in the Old Testament about the fall of Satan. Some try and say, well, you know, it might be embedded in, Isaiah 14 or Isaiah 28, and that's disputed or not when it talks about the king of Babylon and all this. But we don't really know. The Bible doesn't tell us. Although it seems to me it would make sense that in order for God to give these creatures free choice, he had to have some distance between them. He had to give them an opportunity not to see his full glory, but to give them an opportunity to make a decision whether they're going to follow him or not. Because freedom requires the ability to make a choice one way or the other. And if God overwhelms them with his presence, then they might not have that choice.
So is that heaven and the heaven we're going to be in, are those going to be like, are those two different heavens?
Oh, you mean in the previous?
Yeah.
Well, it might not be. Well, our ultimate heaven is a new heaven and a new earth. Yeah. So before the universe was created, God was in heaven, so to speak, his dwelling place. God creates the universe, and heaven ultimately is going to be a renewed earth and a renewed universe where we're going to have physical bodies. We're not going to be Casper the Friendly Ghost. We're going to have physical bodies, glorified bodies that never decay. That's our ultimate destiny. Now, people that die now, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. They, in some sense, go to be with the Lord now, but that's not ultimate heaven. Ultimate heaven is a physical place, not an ethereal place. So it's a different place than where Satan and the angels were, because that was an immaterial realm. This is going to be a physical realm, ultimate heaven. Now, will we have free will in heaven? It seems to me we will, but we'll have... First of all, we won't have a sin nature, and secondly, we won't have any desire to sin because we won't have any need to sin, in the sense that we won't want anything we don't have. We'll have everything we need. The reason we sin now, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, is usually just one of three things, or a combination thereof: sex, money, or power, relationships, finances, or pride, or power, those kind of things. We take shortcuts to get those good things. Those are good things, right? Sex, money, and power are good things. But we take shortcuts to get them here on earth because we don't have them. In heaven, we won't have any deficiencies. We won't have any need to sin. We'll see God for who he is, 1 John 3, 1 and 2, the beatific vision, and there won't be any need to sin or desire to sin.
So with Lucifer, so that gets me thinking, did he actually create / start sin, or was it there before? Was it called sin? Was it something that God was what he did? Was it sin?
Lucifer's free choice to disobey God was sinful, yes.
So
and then
where
Adam and
did
Eve.
sin, so did God create sin?
No. God creates the possibility of sin by giving us free will, right?
Yeah.
But he's not the sinner. Just like when we have children, we create the possibility that children will sin, but when they sin, we don't cause the sin. We just create, we're the instrumental cause through which God creates people. And when we choose to have children, we're not causing them to sin, but we're, by creating them, giving them the opportunity to sin.
Okay.
Right?
Cool. Thank you.
Hey, great. Thanks for the question, Madeline.
In heaven, it is believed that there is no sin or evil. It is a place of perfect communion with God, where all beings are in complete harmony with His will. However, the Bible tells us that Lucifer, who was originally an angel created by God, rebelled against God's authority and desired to exalt himself to be like God, Isaiah 14 verses 12 to 15. The exact details of how Lucifer, who became Satan after his rebellion, thought to go against God and convinced other angels to join him are not explicitly described in the Bible. However, we can infer from various passages that Lucifer's pride and desire for power led him to rebel against God. He likely deceived and influenced other angels with his persuasive words and distorted promises. It is important to note that the rebellion of Lucifer and the fallen angels occurred before the establishment of heaven as described in the Bible. The rebellion took place in the spiritual realm, separate from the earthly conception of heaven. It is believed that heaven, as the dwelling place of God and the redeemed, is distinct from the spiritual realm where angels dwell. Regarding free will in heaven, the Bible does not provide explicit details about the extent of free will among angels in heaven. However, we can infer that angels, like humans, were created with free will. This can be seen through the choices made by Lucifer and the fallen angels to rebel against God. It is essential to understand that free will does not necessarily lead to sin. In the heavenly realm, it is believed that angels who remain in God's presence willingly choose to align their will with His, without the inclination to rebel or sin. As for the question of whether all angels are in heaven or if some are outside of heaven, the Bible does not provide a comprehensive answer. While there are references to angels carrying out missions on earth or in the spiritual realm, it is not clear if there are angels who exist outside of heaven. Angels are portrayed as heavenly beings who serve and worship God, and their nature and purpose are intricately connected to His divine plan. Regarding the concept of sin, it is important to understand that sin is ultimately a rebellion against God's perfect and holy nature. The origin of sin is not explicitly explained in the Bible. However, it is believed that sin entered the world through the disobedience of Adam and Eve, the first human beings, in the Garden of Eden, Genesis 3. Lucifer, through his rebellion, introduced sin into the spiritual realm. God did not create sin but gave humans and angels free will, allowing them to choose between obedience and disobedience. Sin is the result of the misuse of free will and the choice to go against God's perfect will and moral standards. God, being perfectly good and just, cannot be the source of sin. The rebellion of Lucifer and the fallen angels happened before the establishment of heaven as described in the Bible. The exact details of their rebellion and the influence Lucifer had on other angels are not explicitly stated. While free will likely existed among angels, those in heaven willingly align their will with God's, without the inclination to sin. Sin entered the world through the disobedience of humans, not through God's creation. The concept of multiple heavens is not explicitly described in the Bible, with heaven being understood as the dwelling place of God and the redeemed,